Greetings and welcome to Cybersecurity Today. I'm your host, Jim Wiggins. If this is your first time tuning into our program, allow me a few moments to introduce what we're all about. So what exactly is Cybersecurity Today? Well, it's a show designed to explore the realm of computer security in an exciting and thoughtful way. Cybersecurity Today is a half-hour news broadcast utilizing a talk show format to break down the themes, topics, and current events in the cybersecurity industry. Our mission with this program is to dispel the murkiness and complexity often associated within the cybersecurity sector. For our viewers who are already active professionals in the field, this show will deliver a pulse on the current state of affairs. We feature a variety of esteemed guests to delve into topics that are important to those in the cybersecurity space. Our objective is to offer information to a diverse audience, from beginners to experts, and everyone in between. You're sure to gain fresh insight and knowledge from today's show. All right, so let's set the stage and discuss the structure of the show. This will help you understand what to expect. Today's show is divided into two parts. Our first segment is commonly known as Cyber Bites, and this covers several current events unfolding today in the cybersecurity industry. Some of these stories might be familiar, while others may be entirely new and fresh to you. Then, in our second segment, we're joined by Mr. Dean Pompilio, the President and CEO at Stepping Stone Solutions. He'll be joining us to discuss the topic of generative artificial intelligence's role in offensive cybersecurity. Okay, so let's get into the Cyber Bite segment and talk about what's going on today in the cybersecurity industry. Israel has accused Iran of hacking private security cameras for espionage amid ongoing missile exchanges between the two countries, urging civilians to secure their devices. In response, an Israeli-aligned group targeted Iran's financial infrastructure, notably attacking Sefa Bank and causing massive cryptocurrency losses at exchange Nobitex. The cyber activities highlight the escalating cyber war between the two nations. In other news, on June 26th, Hawaiian Airlines reported a cybersecurity attack that impacted its IT systems. Despite the breach, the carrier is operating its full flight schedule and guest travel has not been significantly impacted. Details on which systems were attacked and how they have been affected have not been provided. In other news, a Chinese state-sponsored group under the Salt Typhoon umbrella exploited a vulnerability in the Cisco IOS XE to compromise configuration files on 3 routers belonging to a major Canadian telecom provider. The breach enabled persistent network-level espionage and covert data collection, highlighting the risks associated with unpatched network infrastructures. Those are some of the top headlines shaping the cybersecurity landscape. We'll take a quick break, but when we return, Mr. Dean Pompilio will be joining us to discuss Red Team Revolution. Generative AI joins the fight. We'll see you in just a moment. Welcome back to Cybersecurity Today. In this next segment, we're excited to welcome Mr. Dean Pompilio, a seasoned cybersecurity instructor, Red Team strategist, and the founder of Stepping Stone Solutions. With a career in IT and cybersecurity spanning more than 3 decades, Dean brings in deep expertise in system administration, security engineering, and ethical hacking, skills he has refined while supporting federal agencies, global financial institutions, and Fortune 500 companies. Dean has trained thousands of professionals worldwide and currently leads cybersecurity education efforts through both corporate training and academic roles, including his work as an adjunct professor at the University of Charleston. Today, he joins us to dive into the emerging intersection of red teaming and generative AI. We'll explore how offensive security is evolving, the role of AI in threat simulation, and what security teams must understand to stay ahead in this rapidly shifting landscape. Dean, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jim. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you. So I thought maybe what we could do, since we've got a pretty diverse audience, could we maybe in simple terms begin by having you explain what a red team does in cybersecurity?
Sure, absolutely. A red team is like your organization's professional troublemaker, but like in a good way, right? Their job is to think and act like hackers so that they can test your security from the inside out. They're not just looking for open doors. They're doing other things. They're trying to pick the locks. They're trying to climb through windows, disable the alarm system. Basically, all these things are done to show us where our defenses are weak. It's sort of like paying someone to rob your house so you can make sure your security system really works.
Understood. So I wanted to also talk a little bit about, since we've kind of defined what red teaming is and how it's used, like you said, offensively to kind of find those kind of weaknesses and those potential areas of exploit. I thought maybe what we could then also do is, since the discussion of this is red teaming and generative AI, maybe we could also talk for a moment about like what generative AI is and why it's making waves in the cybersecurity space right now. Any thoughts on that?
Sure. The generative AI is sort of like having a Swiss Army knife for your creative ideas. It can generate text, can generate code, it can generate images, even voice, really, with amazing realism. And in cybersecurity, it's making waves because it can automate everything from phishing emails to malware development. As Mark Andreessen said, software is eating the world, and now basically AI is eating software. So it's getting really interesting out there. Understood.
So I think you kind of just alluded to this next question I wanted to talk to you about, having defined what a red team is and defining what generative AI is. Can you maybe expand upon that last one and kind of talk about how this technology, this generative AI, is being adopted by red teams to, for example, simulate different aspects of cyber intrusions when they're doing their offensive security steps?
Sure. Yeah. Red teams using generative AI it's almost like having a supercharged intern with no need for sleep, right? Because they can just keep on producing content. We can get those phishing emails that sound just like your CEO. We can use it to craft very convincing lures or bait, if you will, and even generate malicious code snippets. It's obviously very fast. It's very scalable and amazingly effective. Like we can think about the doing your best work in less time. And everyone wants to do that, of course.
Understood. So, one of the areas that you kind of alluded to and talked about was, obviously trying to break into systems. Let's talk about it from an attack simulation perspective. So, how could a red team maybe use generative AI to either support or be able to perform different types of attack simulations? How would that benefit them?
Sure. There's lots of different examples. Some of the more interesting ones that I find interesting are using AI to create deep fake voicemails to impersonate executives or simulate zero-day-like behaviors in a sandbox environment to see what the detectability might be for advanced malware. Recently I read about a team that was using AI to auto-generate multiple social engineering scripts in real time, adjusting based on the various target profiles. It's a little bit like what's the term, improv comedy, except the punchline is data exfiltration or some sort of other cybercrime.
Understood. So, you were talking earlier about using it for, generating deep fakes and voice and things along that. Can you talk a little bit about how it improves the realism of the attack? I mean, obviously it sounds like, based on what you were alluding to, that it's able to kind of maybe potentially fool organizational personnel to think that they're getting an email from their boss, but like maybe explain a little bit about why that's helpful and how that could potentially be used to kind of circumvent security controls and things along that nature.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that AI can bring a very sort of a creepy kind of realism. It's obviously learning from vast data sets in order to mimic human behavior. So that means that whatever emails you generate, they seem very authentic. You know, the chatbots that we're all interacting with, most of these are AI driven, but they can certainly be used for malicious purposes. They can engage with targets very convincingly, and ultimately they're trying to develop well-designed scripts that may be able to bypass basic defenses. It's making it so that red team exercises feel less like simulations and more like the real deal.
So Dean, previously you talked about, using artificial intelligence to try to do deep fakes and different types of misrepresentations to, organizational personnel as part of maybe offensive or red teaming exercises. Do you see there might be a point where AI might independently or helping, the red teams design and execute sophisticated red team scenarios? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely not science fiction anymore. It's something everyone's probably seen in movies and TV shows, but we're getting so close now to what was fictional before being actual reality. And having autonomous simulations where you might use AI to chain tools and tactics together, looking for multiple different exploits that can be done in a very effective sequence, for instance. But we still have to remember that we need human oversight. It's a good analogy might be to think of it as a talented but reckless intern. Would you give your intern nuclear codes? Probably not. Same idea would apply here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk a little bit about, prompting. I mean, that's kind of the secret sauces I've heard about with regard to generative AI, right? When you actually prompt the large language models and the AI systems to create stuff for you. How do red teams use prompting, and this is the term they like to refer to as prompt engineering, to create realistic phishing scenarios, social engineering, and different kinds of malware scenarios? Can you talk about that intersection for a moment?
Sure. Analogy that I like to use is that prompt engineering is like writing a spell. You have to phrase it just right to get the results that you want. So red teams are using prompt engineering to coax AI into generating very specifically targeted phishing emails, scripts that can simulate insider threats, and in a lot of cases even create fake news stories to support larger campaigns, fake images, fake videos. It's less about coding really and more about clever wording.
So what makes it so effective? Is it the interpretation that the large language model interprets from what's being asked, or is it how it's being asked?
Yeah, it's definitely how it's being asked. The specificity is really what is the main thing to focus on. If your prompt is too vague, it's going to give you junk. But a well-crafted prompt is more likely to hit the target. A good analogy would be like asking a barista for a double shot oat milk caramel macchiato, extra hot, no foam. That's a very specific drink, right? So you're going to get what you ask for when you do something like that. And a good prompt can yield messages that are so convincing, even your most skeptical team member might click the link.
So it's better to have that specificity than just say, I want a cup of coffee, it sounds like, huh?
Yeah, hopefully it's a good way to think about it.
Absolutely. So do you think that prompt engineering is going to become kind of a core skill that the offensive cybersecurity professional would want to kind of take advantage of, or at least develop moving forward?
Absolutely. In the age of AI that we're in, being a good prompt engineer is like being a skilled lockpicker. It's not just a neat trick, it's a necessary offensive skill. Some organizations I've been reading about recently are even creating prompt ops roles, so prompt operations to help with readiness. And it's basically like saying, okay, social engineering is going full sci-fi now. People have these titles. This is their job all day long, is to find the right request or the right question to ask to get the desired results.
So let's talk a little bit about the intersection between human and AI systems, right? We've talked a lot about that already. You talked about the importance of human oversight. Talk for a moment to me a little bit about where those limits are in terms of, do they exist? How much oversight do you need to have? When can you let it be autonomous? I mean, do you have any kind of thoughts on, like as a red teamer, when would you know that something's ready for prime time, I guess is what I'm trying to go after. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. I think the best way to think about it is that AI is supporting the red team behind the scenes, right? It's offering insights, generating content, definitely speeding up your analysis, sort of acting like a trusted advisor in a lot of ways. But it still should be the humans that are doing the critical thinking, such as planning the mission, making judgment calls, using intuition, trying to trust our gut feeling sometimes. We certainly don't want to neglect the importance of human oversight, because if things become too autonomous, then inevitably there will be problems.
Understood. So kind of building on that, let's talk a little bit about some of the risks and some of the challenges. What do you think the issue points are in using generative AI today in red teaming activities? Like if you were providing guidance, what would be your top couple things that you would say, hey, you got to look out for this, or you got to look out for that?
Well, since we already know that AI can fabricate information, fabricate facts, it can certainly reinforce whatever biases are present in not only in the information it's referencing, but in the prompts that it's given. So we can expect and predict, well, I shouldn't use the word predict, we can expect that we will get unpredictable results. It's like a power tool, right? It has amazing potential, but it's risky to use it without supervision. On top of this, we also have to worry about things like data privacy, model drift, and what you might call ethical gray zones.
So then how would a red team, I kind of heard you kind of move into my next question, which was a great segue. How would you mitigate those hallucinations that you were talking about, the security concerns of privacy, the biases that would naturally happen? Like if you were on a red team, what would be some of the kind of processes or practices that you might look to do to try to address some of those concerns?
I would say just the basics, right? Testing and doing some more testing, and then some more testing after that. We have to do a lot of tuning for prompts. If I'm running a prompt and I don't like the results, I have to figure out how to make small adjustments in order to tweak it to get closer to what I'm looking for. Also, there's multiple models available, so you might want to use the same prompts on different models just to see how the results might vary. And as was already mentioned, we want to make sure we always apply human review or oversight. If we're staying current with AI safety guidelines, we should always make sure that there are strict guardrails. Kind of living by the old saying, trust but verify, and maybe in this case, and then verify again.
Understood. So, a lot of organizations employ, for example, a red team, which is the offensive side, and they also sometimes have blue teams, and those are sometimes referred to as the defensive side. How do you think the blue team members are responding to the rise in all these AI-powered red team tactics?
Yeah, if they're not using AI as well, then they're certainly going to come up short. They have to step up to use AI for things like detection, right? Trying to spot behavioral anomalies, trying to be able to flag content that might be synthetic or generated. Also, correlating strange log activity or other kinds of events. The ability to analyze, potentially millions or even billions of data points, looking for patterns, looking for correlations, looking for trends. This is something that humans can obviously do, but we can't do it anywhere near as fast or as accurately. So what we really have is kind of like a cyber chess match between dueling AIs.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my next points. Asking if there's kind of an arms race going on between the offensive and the defensive, and it sounds like that might in fact start to materialize.
Yeah, I think it's already happening.
Absolutely. All right, so we've got just about 5 minutes left. I wanted to ask you about also ethics. You brought it up. And so, if you were on a red team, do you envision that there are kind of ethical boundaries that red team members need to be mindful of when they use generative AI?
Yes, I would say definitely. Just because we can use AI to craft a perfect fishing lure doesn't mean it should impersonate real people without some form of consent. Like if you're impersonating an executive, for instance. Ethics in red teaming should mean that we respect boundaries, even if the boundaries are simulated. There's a professor of computer science at Purdue University, has a kind of an interesting quote talking about, the fact that using encryption on the internet is the equivalent of arranging an armored car to deliver your credit card information from someone that's living in a cardboard box. So it's kind of thought-provoking, right? Just visualizing that, thinking about how does this really work? We need proper ethical involvement to help balance the power, because with this great power comes great responsibility.
Sure, sure. As you talk about that, I'm kind of envisioning the idea of like guardrails, having some kind of constraints. And I'm wondering, who's ultimately responsible for that? When we talk about acceptable use, when we talk about the ethical use of generative AI, especially when it comes to red teaming, is this the individual? Is it the organization? Is it the regulators, the industry at large? Where does it currently stand, and where do you think it's going to go relative to kind of oversight?
I think it really needs to be a mix where we might focus on organizations to do things like set policies, whereas regulators are more involved with providing laws. And industry groups should be focused more on offering best practices. We certainly could use more collaboration, because right now it's a little bit like everyone that just making their own traffic rules, which is fine until you have a pileup and you have to figure out what to do next.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let's also talk about transparency, right? So like if you're on a red team, should there be a requirement, or is there a requirement that it should be disclosed that you used AI in any kind of red team operations? What do you know about it, or what do you think about it relative to that idea?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say for internal teams, definitely. It helps stakeholders understand the tools, understand the risks. Whereas with an external engagement, on the other hand, transparency would depend on the scope and the audience. So in general, documenting AI use should be something that we would take very seriously, because it's critical for accountability and also for things like audits.
Makes sense. So, everybody's worried about AI taking their job, or that's kind of a discussion, workforce disruption, workforce displacement. Do you think that AI is ever going to replace red team professionals, or do you think it's going to, for the foreseeable future, continue to just play more of a supporting type of role?
I would say that AI is already replacing some tasks, and it's going to continue to evolve, obviously, as the technology changes and as people learn to harness this amazing power that they have at their fingertips, literally at their fingertips. But AI is not going to necessarily be able to properly think like a human adversary. Red teaming is still part psychology, part strategy, maybe even part mischief. AI doesn't do mischief nearly as well as people, at least not yet. I'm sure that's going to change, but for the time being, I think humans still have an advantage in being able to find creative solutions and be able to continue to adapt so that you don't end up getting replaced by technology.
Understood. Let's look deeper into that crystal ball for a moment. Where do you see generative AI taking red teaming in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, that's a tough one to think about. I would say that we'll probably see a lot more autonomous simulation platforms where in addition to things like AI-driven vulnerability chaining, as I was mentioning before. Plus, we have to think also about, I was mentioning trend analysis earlier. So every time that we're using AI tools to perform red team engagements, we're building a repository of historical data. And that historical data will just continue to grow and grow, and that can be used as additional input to feed back into those same systems to essentially have like a built-in coaching capability. What went well last time? What worked well? What did not work well? It's we basically want the AI to train with us and then fight back when it has good ideas and novel approaches.
Understood. Dean, we're almost out of time. How can viewers connect with you if they have follow-on questions?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only person with the name Dean Pompilio, so it shouldn't be too hard to find me. You can also visit my website at steppingstone.solutions.
Dean, we're out of time. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your expert insights into the role of generative AI in the offensive side of cybersecurity. That wraps it up for today's episode. For more information about cybersecurity today and future episodes, visit our website at www.cybersecuritytoday.org. Additionally, you can scan the QR code that's displayed at the bottom of your screen for quick and easy access to our show's website. Finally, we welcome your questions or comments via email at contact@cybersecuritytoday.org. Feel free to reach out to us. We're here to assist and engage with you. That does it for today. Thanks a lot for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at our next broadcast. Stay safe, stay informed. Have a great day.